All right, welcome in to the Pharmacist and the Photog games, grooves and grub. I am Dion Spencer, the Pharmacist, and this is Steve Moss, the Photog. After a 2-week plus hiatus, we are back, albeit in a little bit different setup than what we had before, and
Just a little.
And that is that is also because of the reason we were out for 2 weeks. Not to make a long story too long, but had a little flooding issue due to a burst water line here in my house, and we're still in the pharmacy, just in the what I call the entertainment / music portion of the room. So luckily, this was one of the only few spaces in the whole house that didn't get flooded. So we're gonna make do with this. We actually kind of like the way it turned out and set up.
Yeah, but what people can't see is the boxes of stuff that you all have had to pull off the walls, and I just don't envy you at all.
And the thing is, it's we're still kind of in a little bit of a state of shock. It's been 2 weeks today since this flooding happened, and it was. I keep telling myself it could have been much worse. The house we didn't burn, that kind of thing.
Nobody got hurt.
It was a clean water flood. I have much appreciation now for just exactly what some of my friends in Frankfurt and some of those locations in Kentucky that suffered flooding earlier in the year, what they experienced, because what we've dealt with the last 2 weeks is pretty minor compared to what those folks have gone through. So yeah, don't get me wrong. I consider myself very fortunate. We at this point haven't identified anything too sentimental or irreplaceable that we've lost due to water damage. So thank goodness for that. But yeah, pretty much this little corner of the pharmacy and our master suite upstairs are the only rooms in the house that won't see some sort of renovation. So anyway, but if you have happened to catch any of our episodes prior to today, this definitely looks a little bit different, and we may explore some options over the next few weeks. But for the time being, this is going to be the setup. So anyway, a lot has happened since we got together the last time. I guess probably the biggest thing was the NBA Finals and the NBA Draft. So we'll start with whichever one of those you want to talk about. Probably the Finals, I guess.
Yeah, that's fine. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leads the Oklahoma City Thunder to an NBA title. Franchise's first. He wins the MVP.
Historically, it's one of the greatest seasons by a singular NBA basketball player that you can argue.
Scoring title, regular season MVP of the league, gets the championship, named the MVP of the finals, and I think he and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar are the only two to do that before the age of 27. Shai's 26, and then LeBron did it at 27, and so he joins pretty elite company. Cason Wallace gets a ring. So
former UK player.
Yeah. So now 18 former Wildcats have won an NBA World Championship. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Shai, you look at that series, and a lot of people I think had OKC penciled in for winning the title in 4 or 5 games, and we watched enough of Indianapolis. The Indiana Pacers leading up to this that, you and I both said not so fast.
Right.
We think it might be a little more competitive than that. Turns out it was.
Their best player goes down, though, with an Achilles tear.
Yeah, so, it's almost like, do you put an asterisk on this? But, there are a lot of good players got injured in these playoffs, and
True.
That happens. That's the nature of the game.
It seems like they all suffered Achilles injuries.
I'm telling you.
Jason Tatum with the Celtics, Dame Leonard with the Bucks. So something's going on.
Well, it's because these youngsters,
is it load management.
It could be that, but it's because these whippersnappers don't wear the old school high top tennis shoes. I think
some people have asked about that. I don't know. So now Shai is burdened. I'll use that word, burdened with having to make a decision. Do I sign a max deal 5 years. I'm sorry, 4 years,
years,
$293 million, or do I play one more season and then sign a 5-year deal worth $380 million? I mean, those are
terrible
it's a damn
decisions.
tough problem to have.
Yeah, and that and here I am trying to figure out, am I going to spend a little bit of extra money to get some nicer cabinets in my new kitchen?
Call Shai and see if you can borrow some cash.
Yeah, it's crazy to think
he's liquid.
The kind of money that they're throwing at this kid and all these NBA players, really. But yeah, I'm happy for Shai. Obviously, Kentucky kid, Kentucky player, not a Kentucky kid, but a Kentucky basketball player. It's always fun to watch those guys. You want to see them do well, and I read getting it done.
I read something today that of all the former MVPs of the league, only maybe like 2 or 3 have never made the Hall of Fame. So you're looking at a 26-year-old who's won a scoring title, won a ring, won an MVP. Many thought he should have won the MVP last year.
Right.
So, there's a good shot he might win another one or 2. So you're looking at probably a Hall of Fame guy.
Yeah, I think so. And
the face of the NBA probably for the next 5 or 6 years.
Well, and immediately when you have a team like this wins a championship, they're young. I mean, they're really young. Alex Caruso was the old man at like 31, 32. The problem with today's NBA is keeping that core together because of salaries and things like that, and egos. Guys who feel like, I could be making a little more money if I got the ball a little more, that kind of thing. But the interesting thing about OKC is during this whole structuring of this team, man, they have amassed a ridiculous amount of draft picks.
Yeah.
So even if they lose
that kind of money,
even if they lose a couple of guys over the next few seasons, if Cason Wallace decides he wants to go somewhere to get a bigger role, or down the road if Holmgren decides I want to go somewhere else, they've got so many draft picks that they're going to have the opportunity. They could pool those draft picks and move up in the draft to get a player that they might not be able to get because their record is too strong. They just have a lot of options available to them, and a lot of things can happen. But you have to think the Thunder are positioned fairly well to be a force for several years to come,
and the second youngest team to ever win a title.
Yeah, that's mind-boggling to get it done the way they did.
They're pretty they're probably standing pat with what they've got because they're, like you said, they're positioned pretty well for the future. So
yeah, I think if they can, I would think that because all these guys are so young, they're kind of locked in with the contract situations they've got. So next 2-3 years, Thunder should be pretty good with the core group that they have. So they could be. We could, hate to throw out the dynasty word because we did that with the Celtics just a couple of years ago, and now they're blowing things up. So, difficult to say.
Right.
So, in that same vein.
I was going to say, speaking of the draft.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant. Kentucky doesn't have a first-rounder, which is, what, first time they've had it?
Yeah, it's first time in many, many years now.
Yeah. But they do have 2 draft picks. Kobe Bryant goes 41 to the Warriors, but then is immediately traded to the Suns. And Amari Williams goes, 46 to Orlando. He was traded to the Celtics.
Yeah.
So when did you ever think that Mark Pope would have more draft picks than John Calipari?
Ooh, yeah, I hadn't even thought about that really, but yeah.
Cal had one. Go in the second round. Adu Thero.
Yeah.
Goes in the second round. So
classic example of what NIL means to college basketball now, because Thero basically lost money by going to the NBA. He could have probably made more money. I think the base salary would have been about the same as a second round draft pick.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, because second round picks, there's no guarantees.
Right. So, I mean, had he come back to Arkansas, or he could have explored the possibility of maybe a transfer and gone with a more lucrative option. But, and had he improved maybe his outside shooting just a bit, he could have moved himself up, high into the first round. So there's a lot of factors at play when you look at the NIL now and what guys basically like Otega Owe decides, hey, I'm going to come back and just try to improve my position a little bit. So,
yeah, it was a pretty decent day for Kentucky. 16th season that UK has sent multiple picks to the draft, which is the longest streak in the country. Duke had all 5 of their starters this year get drafted.
Mm-hmm.
John Shire, 9 picks in the draft in 3 years and hasn't done a thing with them.
yeah, that's, you can say what you want about what Cal did with all that talent at UK, but I would argue that not just Shire, but even going back to Coach K, he had some incredible talent and, won a couple championships with them, but still some of the teams that he had put together were touted as being some of the best of all time. And
John Calipari, of course, who won the 1 title, went to several Final Fours, but amassed all that talent and didn't get a lot out of them.
Right. Most of them seem to flourish once they get to the NBA.
Yes.
Which, I was pretty stoked about Kobe Bryant getting selected by the Warriors, and then when they traded him to the Suns, I was a little bit bummed because the Suns, man, I don't know at what point Devin Booker says, you guys need to get me out of here, because the guy's been in the league now for 10 years almost, probably. I think, and he's no closer to winning. He's further away from winning a championship now than he's ever been, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know at what point he starts chasing rings and decides to. I don't want to see him go down as one of those guys, the best ever to never win a ring.
Well, eventually those guys come around. They'll have made so much money that they realize, I need to stop chasing the bag and I need to start chasing the ring.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant being one of them. I think those guys, they just kind of muddle through. They make their money, and then suddenly, they realize, oh, gosh, I'm 32, 33 years old. I have nothing to show for this except for a huge bank account.
Yeah.
But that's not what secures your legacy in that league.
Yeah. Well, and at least in Durant's case, he did, at this point, you could argue, thanks to Steph Curry, he's got a ring or two to fall back on. So, I mean, he's going to be fine from a legacy standpoint. But I read an interesting article this week talking about players like Durant, and that you tie certain players to certain teams, regardless of the sport. And even if they happen to go play for a couple of other teams late in their career, Dominique Wilkins, always a Hawk, forever will be associated with the Hawks. And there's multiple players you can throw that out there.
Shaq will always be a Laker.
Right. You just have, you don't, when I think of Shaquille O'Neal's legacy, I don't think of that season or two that he spent down there on the end of the bench for the Celtics.
Right.
You forget about that.
Right.
So I don't know at what point some of those guys, like Durant, I couldn't tie Durant to a team. He's not even the most beloved. You could say, okay, he had his best runs outside of Golden State. He had some good runs early in his career with Oklahoma City, but Oklahoma City's most beloved player is Nick Collison, who averaged about 4 a game, but he spent his entire career with them.
Well, and I think I could make, or anybody really could make the argument that Kevin Durant is a borderline Hall of Famer just because he hadn't found a home. He hadn't stuck anywhere. He hadn't really done much.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like I said, he was lucky enough to latch on, and I don't want to say ride the brilliance of Steph Curry, but those were some pretty special teams. Obviously, Curry had a huge part in that, but I look at him as not much better than players like Tracy McGrady or James Harden.
McGrady's in the Hall of Fame, though.
McGrady, to me, was just a stat stuffer. He didn't get it done. He never got it done with any of those teams as far as the ultimate prize. And, it's kind of the same thing for James Harden. Sure, you can score 35 a game and do all that, but you don't get your team to a championship, and that's pretty important, I think, in the overall legacy talk.
Well, back to the draft, Cooper Flagg goes number 1. We all knew that he was going to go number 1. So now Duke has 4 number 1 draft picks. That tops UK. And I know UK fans, they'll find any way and every way to manipulate a list so that they're first in everything. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
So Kentucky has had 3 overall number 1 picks: John Wall, Karl Towns, Anthony Davis. But now Duke has 4. Kentucky did have the lead with 48 overall first-round picks. Duke now has 50. So I like to needle Kentucky fans just a little.
Yeah, I mean,
but Kentucky still has more wins overall than anybody.
I would still argue that overall Kentucky's guys that went to the NBA
have
a lot of them have had better.
Yeah,
careers.
I don't disagree with you on that.
So yeah,
it'd be hard pressed to find one Duke player who really just blew the doors off that league.
Right. That's 100% true. I mean, Cooper Flagg could be that
he
kid.
Could be.
I think he's going to a great situation.
Yep.
He's going to a good organization. If you can get Kyrie healthy
but he's got two teammates who monopolize the ball. So
yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him. When you look at the other interesting thing that came out of the draft for me is the whole Ace Bailey situation. I frankly, when they started talking about the draft lineup and who was going to get picked where, and they started throwing out Ace Bailey's name, I don't think I saw that kid play one time last year.
I think I watched one Rutgers game, and it was only because they were on before a Kentucky game or something like that. Yeah, and there were two Rutgers players who went in the top 10?
10 or
and
like
they didn't do anything this past season.
Yeah,
so it's kind of strange.
Well, and
Ron Harper's kid went 2?
Yeah,
he went after Flagg.
But the Bailey situation is just weird because the way the kid handled himself leading up to the draft, he didn't work out for teams. He put out there that he was not interested in playing for certain teams,
including the team that drafted him.
And I'm just kind of like, had Cooper Flagg come out and said, I don't want to play it in Dallas, then I could see Dallas maybe putting together a package to trade that pick and get something out of it.
Yeah.
Because I think Flagg maybe could have carried that kind of gravitas that he could have said, I'm not playing here, and that might have backed it up. But Ace Bailey, I'm sorry, you don't have the panache to say, I'm not going to Utah. I hope that Utah just says, fine, you sit there this season.
Yeah. And Danny Ainge, who's the general manager there, he was like, screw it, we're drafting you. And if you don't want to play here, well, we've got your rights until I think they hold his rights for 2 years.
Yeah, that's the way the collective bargaining agreement works in the NBA is the team that drafts you, they basically own you for however many years. I don't know what happens.
I think it's 2.
Yeah. And so, I understand thinking you're maybe worth more or you have in your mind that you want to play in a higher profile market, but the kid's definitely not getting himself off to a good start.
No.
With the fans and with just the overall. I just feel like the kid's got bust written all over him, and I may be wrong, but other Kentucky players, Lamont Butler signed undrafted free agent agreement with the Hawks. Andrew Carr signed one with the Trailblazers. Oddly enough, no one has picked up the phone to call Jackson Robinson yet, which
makes me wonder what's going on with his wrist.
Yeah, because I'm kind of surprised at that. Streaky shooter for sure, but he's a 6'6", 6'7", kind of transitional type player that I feel like could benefit somebody. So yeah, it's kind of odd that he hasn't gotten a phone call from anybody at this point. So we may have to follow Jackson overseas next year if we're interested in seeing what he's doing with his basketball career. So we'll keep an eye on that as the Kentucky players start to hit the.
One other NBA note I read today. I think the story came out on CBS Sports today that Julius Randle is going to re-sign with Minnesota, a 3-year deal worth $100 million. So
that's probably a smart move because I think Julius is on the edge of slipping into I don't know what the word is.
A rental.
Yeah, just not being relative anymore. So you secure the money.
If they offer you that kind of cash, you better take it.
Yeah, you don't want to pull with a kid from the Lakers a few years ago.
And the Wolves they're right there.
They're close.
Yeah,
they're very close.
They need something to put them over the hump. But Yeah, with him and Ant, they have a core group there that is going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a good team. I mean, I feel like they just have to maybe get on a roll and avoid the injuries and that kind of thing. They'll be good. You had some notes about the ACC-SEC Challenge.
Yeah, so that schedule came out a couple of weeks ago. Kentucky will host North Carolina on December the 2nd in Rupp Arena as part of the SEC-ACC Challenge. And I just thought, that's pretty cool because I think a lot of people were hoping it was going to be Duke because, Kentucky wasn't scheduled to play Duke in either one of those made-for-TV Champions Classic or CBS Sports Classic or whatever. And so they get North Carolina, and I think Carolina's probably down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be a fun time in Rupp Arena on December the 2nd. The one that intrigues me is Louisville goes to Arkansas. So Calipari gets to host the Cards in Vietnam, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be one of the few times, I won't say I'm going to be rooting for Louisville, but I don't know that I'll be disappointed if they go in there and put a beat down on Cal and the Hogs. Yeah, I don't know.
The best game is going to be Florida at Duke.
Yeah.
Both of those teams are going to be good. I think Duke is reloading. Florida has a bunch of guys back, albeit they don't have their guards. And Denzel Aberdeen now plays for Kentucky. So that'll be a good one to watch. That's those games are December the 2nd and December the 3rd. Kentucky has, I think, won the last 4 meetings with North Carolina. 2014 was the last time they played in Rupp. So
I think I was at that one.
Carolina is 2-5 all time in Rupp. The last time Carolina won in Lexington, where did I write that down? Yeah, I can't remember now. 2007, I think, was the last time they won in Lexington.
Wouldn't be surprised. I'm trying to think. I know I saw Kentucky, North Carolina during the 2012 season, during the championship season, because that's when Anthony Davis basically saved the game.
He was over in my corner there.
Shot.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if I went back after that one. So
the John Wall game was an exciting game as well. That was kind of his coming out party, his national coming out party, and
he hit a game winner in that.
No, he hit the game winner against Miami of Ohio.
Oh, it could be. Yeah.
I think that was the first regular season game of the year that year.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, it was his first game, I believe, because remember he was suspended, I think, 2 games because of the incident in Carolina when he was still in high school. Yeah, so the ACC-SEC Challenge schedule is out. That'll be fun. Are you aware of the Champions Weekend associated with TBT?
I am not.
So a bunch of guys have already committed to come back and play in a charity game at Tate's Creek. That's on July the 12th at 6 o'clock. But they've already gotten commitments from like Marcus Teague, Julius Mays. Khalil Whitney is coming back for all,
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
The Dragon. I don't know that we even missed him.
Right.
He's playing for TBT as well. You got Archie Goodwin, who's playing both.
My least favorite player of UK history. I mean, yeah, he's my least favorite of all time.
Deron Lamb is playing both. Almanor is playing both. Ramel Bradley's coming back. Of course, he lives in Lexington.
Ramel's got to be getting up there a little bit in age.
Darius Miller's going to play in this charity game, and then Dominique Hawkins is going to play. So
that sounds like fun.
Yeah, Kentucky fans love those kinds of events because it's kind of loose, and the guys are glad to be back. And like Willie Cauley-Stein when he came back last summer for TBT, and he's playing again this year. He was like, I think you mentioned this previously, like these guys miss that adulation in the fans.
Mm-hmm.
The love that the UK fans show that love better than probably any fan base in the country.
I think you're right.
So I think these guys look forward to coming back.
All right. So, we have anything else in sports? I mean,
well, I was going to ask you if are you aware of the new college basketball rules that go into effect this season?
So I know I read an article about a few things, but I've had a little bit of other things on my mind the last 2 weeks. So I have honestly 100% transparency. I have forgotten what I read, to be honest with you.
Well, the biggest thing is the coach's challenge.
Yes.
So I think we're slowly but surely kind of aligning with the NBA. I wish they would implement some international rules, like you can take the ball off the rim and the trapezoid lane and all that stuff. But we're getting there. The coach's challenge is a different rule that's going to be implemented this upcoming season. But basically, coaches can challenge any out of bounds call, any basket interference or goaltending call, anything related to a block charge in the restricted area there in the lane, and they're going to be allowed one challenge. If you're successful, you keep your challenge for the rest of the game. But if you aren't successful in the replay challenge, then you lose, what challenges you have left. So the other thing that they're going to emphasize this year is going to be the continuation, which I do like.
Yeah.
As long as you've started the motion to go to the rim or make this, attempt a shot, then you'll get free throws for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that definitely, I know the one thing that a lot of coaches were pushing for was the advancing of the ball late in the game, which I don't think they didn't get.
I'm not a fan of that rule.
Me either. I kind of feel like that's almost like that's cheating a little bit. You get the ball out back there.
Yeah,
you got to figure
bring
out
it 94 feet.
You got to Christian Laettner that stuff,
right.
And if you're going to beat us on some fluke like that. That's way.
Yeah, I'm not for it too.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that's.
And then one other note, actually two. Beginning in 2026, college basketball teams can go to 32 games. We've heard Mark Pope in the past say he would like to see a 40-game season. I don't know about that, but
yeah, that's a lot of games.
They're going to add one more game next year, so that enables some teams to do those home court things like Kentucky did last year, where you invite 3 teams in, you play a 2-game round robin kind of deal.
Yeah. It's all about the money.
Yeah, of course it is. And then should be coming out sometime in the next week or two whether or not the NCAA tournament expands from either 60, what are we at now? 68?
Well, 68.
Yeah.
Count the playing
to either
games.
72 or 76 or beyond. So, if you add 4 more teams, that gives you 2 more play-in games.
Right.
And that would be kind of cool, because then Dayton could be the hub for that first week of the NCAA tournament where you're playing games all through the week. And that could be kind of cool.
My only argument with the playing games, and I still don't understand their explanation for this, is how you can have teams playing in the play-in game that are end up being like an 11 or 12 seed. To me, the play-in games
should be for the 16s.
Those should be the 16s. That if a team warrants a spot in the field as an 11 or 12 or whatever, then they should just be in the field. They shouldn't have to play in.
I don't know that I want to see, Sisters of the Poor playing.
Sisters of the Poor West.
Yes. And, I don't want to see 4 of those games, or 2 as it currently stands.
That's true. I guess, but it's just, that always baffles me.
The name of the game is win your games, win your league, or win your league's tournament.
Yeah.
That's, then you solve everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, the NCAA tournament, we're eventually going to get to the point where it's just, about 120 something teams, and they're just going to funnel it all the way down to where we are, because that's where the money is, those tournament games and then the TV rights and everything.
Yeah. There's
a lot going on there.
There is.
There is. The other sports note, we'll tie it in here, is we were talking about this leading up to today, and then it actually happened today. Hall of Fame trainer Dwayne Lukas, we're recording on a Sunday afternoon, the 28th of June. Dwayne Lukas passed away apparently earlier today, his family announced.
I think it was actually late last night.
Yeah. So, we knew he was very sick, on hospice care, and other parts of the country where horse racing is not as much a way of life as it is here. This necessarily doesn't register, but here it does.
I think even some of the fringe people, some of the fringe fans would know who that is. I think Wayne Lukas became a household name.
Yeah.
Associated with horse racing. You know, he was first a basketball coach at a high school in Wisconsin, and that was his nickname, was Coach.
Yeah.
So anytime anybody saw him trackside or on the backside at the barn, it was always Coach. I've had a lot of interactions with him, been on the other end of an interview with him. And the one thing I'll say is he was buttoned up like you would think a coach would be. And I think he kind of carried his operation like that. You know, his barn was immaculate. If you can believe this, guys would be out there raking the gravel around his barn so that it just looked manageable and well kept. But you know, he kind of transformed the way trainers do business. They are their own little cottage industry, if you will, you know. And if you look at the guys that have come through his barn, some of his assistant trainers, you'd go, Todd Pletcher, I've heard of him.
Yeah.
Kieran McLaughlin, who's a Lexington guy, I've heard of him. Dallas Stewart, I've heard of him. Mike Maker, he's one of the hot trainers, or he was one of the hot trainers. So all these guys came through his barn. Wayne, just a huge influence over the whole business of horse racing. And, you know, he's one of those guys that you would see him up on the horse. He was out there every single day, and he was, 89?
Yeah.
He was just
old.
out there on the track a couple of months ago until he was in so much pain he couldn't do it anymore.
Right.
But he's always got the cowboy hat on. He was always up on his paint horse, and he was always out there at 5 a.m.
Yeah. I mean,
just like all the good guys, all the good trainers are.
Yeah, and just like you're talking about, just the way he kept his barn and the surroundings, you know, every time I happened upon him in public, he was always very well put together, always dressed sharp, usually had the cowboy hat on, always had the sunglasses. Those were a staple. But, I mean, yeah, just a legend. 15 Triple Crown victories, 4 Derbies, 7 Preakness, and 4 Belmonts. Just legendary.
He's won 4 Eclipse Awards for Trainer of the Year. He's won 20 Breeders' Cup races. 20. 20 of those
that's
things.
That's a crazy number. I mean,
a couple of horses that people probably either do or don't remember. Dance Floor, owned by MC Hammer.
You're right.
Who finished 3rd in the Derby. I remember when Dance Floor raced at Keeneland in the Bluegrass Stakes, and Hammer came in with his whole entourage. And, I mean, you would have thought they had just come from a show.
Yeah.
Because that's how they were dressed. I mean, they were very polite. Hammer was, you know, obviously a huge attraction at the time. And then Winning Colors. And the reason I mention Winning Colors is because she was a filly who won the Derby in '88, but she was foaled just miles from here in Georgetown, where we're recording this, at Echo Valley Farm.
Right.
The Sutchers used to own Echo Valley, and so it was very cool. He, you know, it'll be strange not seeing him at the track next year.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you look at those numbers, those Triple Crown wins. I mean, he had multiple horses that took 2 of the 3.
4 Derbies, 7 Preakness, 4 Belmonts.
Yeah. I mean, he had several opportunities where he just missed out on one as far as winning a Triple Crown. So, yeah, legendary trainer, going to be missed for sure in the world. And I would expect, you know, over when the next big events happen, the Breeders' Cup events, we'll see some, you know, pretty moving tributes to him and what he's meant to thoroughbred racing for sure. Anything else sports related?
Sports-wise, nah.
I can't think of anything else we've covered.
Did we talk about Vince Merrill last time?
We did. We talked about the fact, because that had happened like earlier in the day when we recorded that day, Vince Merrill moving to Louisville, and since then there's been some back and forth between Vince and
we
UK
found
fans.
out that like nobody at UK knew it was coming until it was leaked
done
on Twitter. So yeah,
So I
kind
think
of
my assessment that night that, Stoops was probably into a hefty pour of bourbon, probably right, because I'd say
Yeah.
he was mad, and that he wasn't kept in the loop a little bit by his buddy of all those years. So yeah. Anyway, well, we'll move on and talk a little bit about music, and I guess we'll start with the fact that we finally, in the horse racing terms, we broke Steve's maiden as far as going to see
Very
Billy
well played.
Strings. If you're not familiar, a maiden horse has never
Never
won a
won.
race,
Yep.
and so Steve was a maiden in the terms that he had not seen Billy Strings, and we went. I went on Friday night with a different friend of mine who had seen him before, and we enjoyed a great show. Saturday night, the show got off to a little bit of a rough start. Not anything we did for sure, but Billy experienced something that I've never seen in a major concert act before. I don't know about you.
I can't say that I've ever seen a band start playing and then something go wrong and they leave the stage for, it was almost 45 minutes.
Yeah. Total delay. I think they said it was like, I saw a thing that said it was 25, 30, but anyway, I mean, Billy literally, they came out on stage and he got 10 seconds into the first song and stopped and said, my bass player, he's got Royal Massat playing stand-up bass. He said, I got no bass. Royal's got no bass. And the next 20 minutes for sure was just basically kind of chaos. They couldn't figure out what was going on. They had one poor kid running around. You got two different soundboards, one in the back, one off to the side of the stage. But they had one kid up there trying to, I say kid, he could have been 40. I don't know. But he was up there trying to make things work, and it wasn't happening. And much to his credit, Billy said, to loosely quote him, he said, I reckon I can pick a couple for you all. And he went out there and he played a couple on his own and one with the rest of the band, just kind of an acoustic style. But yeah, they eventually ended up leaving the stage for a while.
I think there was some frustration and some aggravation going on up there.
Well, and I'm
major
sure
consternation.
It was probably frustrating for Billy, because I guess I could backtrack a little bit, because on Friday night he came out on the stage by himself with the microphone and just told the crowd that they had traveled overnight from Michigan, where he lives, and after getting a few hours of sleep, he got a call from his wife to tell him that his mother had passed away. So I thought at that point he was coming out to tell everybody, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to play a concert for you tonight. But he proceeded to say that his mother was a huge fan of the Fans and would have wanted him to play. And he again, to loosely quote, said, people are asking why I'm not with my family. Why didn't I go home to be with my family? And I feel like I am with my family. You people are my family. So he proceeded to, I said, burn the house down on Friday night. So the fact that he was able to channel that kind of energy, 2 nights in a row, because once they got back out on stage, they dialed it in, and it was a great show. I felt like it was really good.
I did too.
He's the consummate professional and musician. You just don't know what you're going to see with him, and I think Steve would maybe echo that thoughts as far as just musicianship.
Well, yeah, I think I at one point late in the show said to you, I think I'm watching the next great guitarist, the next great rock guitar player. Only problem is he plays bluegrass.
Right.
And I mean, I sincerely mean that. The guy is an unbelievable talent. And you could tell, like when they get to a certain part in a song, and they take off and they just start riffing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of rock influence in what he does with his flange and his phasers and his wah pedal and all that other stuff, because he's got an acoustic guitar. He never put the acoustic down. He never brought out an electric. But you would swear that, you're watching, something from a rock concert.
Yeah.
And then they would bring it back around and they would all, come together and finish the song out. It was really good. I'm glad that I went. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
He's been urging me to to try Billy Strings for a while, and I'm glad that I did.
Yeah. I mean, and I can't remember. I get the two nights confused. I know the first night, he always throws in some covers. I mean, he'll take very well-known songs and cover them with a bluegrass lean. And so the first night kind of surprised everybody as he covered a couple of Beatles tunes. I'm drawing a blank. What did he covered something the night that we saw him?
Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan, yeah. He did a really cool cover of Bob Dylan. That was, I had never heard him do that before. So
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun. But good show. We both grabbed a couple of souvenirs, and once the man cave pharmacy gets put back together, I'll be framing up some new posters and getting those on display. And hopefully I've inspired Steve to start a poster collection of his own. So Billy Strings always does some pretty cool, unique, like location specific art.
Yeah.
Has artwork commissioned to
cool.
the poster. So a lot of fun. Also on the music front, another local kid who has exploded is Tyler Childers, and he announced sometime in the last 2 weeks a new album coming out, and
Called Snipe Hunter,
which
I love.
Yeah, it's amazing because when I was a kid going to 4-H camp, they took us out in the woods to go snipe hunting, and
Yes.
nobody knew what we were doing. I mean,
And that's
we didn't know what that
probably a
was.
Southern thing.
Oh, absolutely. But anyway, Tyler's new record is called Snipe Hunter. I of course pre-ordered that on vinyl, so it's a real cool splatter-looking vinyl. But interesting thing about that is you're blowing up in the world when you're a country / Americana artist who gets basically no radio
I wouldn't
airplay.
even call him country.
Yeah, I mean it's
folk.
Yeah, it's folky, Americana, indie. I don't know how you classify Tyler and some of those guys, but this next album is going to be produced by Rick Rubin, which is I don't even know know where to go with that.
If you remember, I was listening to an audio book of Rick Rubin's, and he is on another planet.
Yeah.
He is deep. He is outside the box, and I just found it very interesting that he is going to produce this album for him. And Tyler's already released the first single, which is not really a new single for him because he's been playing this song since he probably started picking up a guitar.
Right. I think there's going to be several songs on this album.
Nose on the Grindstone is the name of the song.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a version of Nose on the Grindstone that's been out there for, at least 5 or 6 years. But there are a bunch of songs that he wrote. Probably the most notable of his songs, there's one called Jersey Giant that has been covered by several artists and has been turned into a pretty big hit by a couple of them. But up until he played here in Lexington at the football stadium, at UK's football stadium back in the spring, he hadn't played that song live in many, many years. So it surprised a lot of people when he brought that out into the set. So I think there's going to be a handful of songs on this album that are old material but have never been released on an official release. So it'll be interesting to see what Rick Rubin does with those things. I mean, just to give you some sort of idea, Rick Rubin has produced everybody from LL Cool J to the Beastie Boys, Run DMC, to Metallica, Rage Against the Machine, the Chili Peppers, AC/DC. I mean,
yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Anybody who's anybody at some point has probably come into contact with Rick Rubin. So
yeah, I follow him on X.
Yeah.
And I mean, the tweets are, some people would say they're bizarre. You just have to read them and reread them and then read them again to figure out what he means, because this guy is so eclectic and deep.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be 100% honest with you. I've got through about 3/4 maybe of the audio book, and then I kind of lost interest because
It's hard to keep
I wasn't doing enough mushrooms or something to keep up with the guy, because he, everything, he is very, he's very spiritual.
Yes. That's a good way.
I don't even know how to put it. The guy, I mean, he feels like the universe conspires to have everything happen for a reason, and he's here for it for sure. So yeah, that's I'm excited about the Tyler album, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who have been Tyler Childers fans for years who, you know, I hate this when I get online because I see so many people are like, I like Tyler better when he was on drugs and drunk, and I just hate that because I'm like, this guy is, you know, one, he's cleaned himself up, and two, artists who find a way to grow and just develop different sounds. That's, to me, that's what it's all about. It's so much fun to listen to artists just not put out the same old thing every time around. And Tyler's moving in that direction, and he's developed a world voice. He is selling out places all over the country, which
just
is
nuts.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Considering literally less than 10 years ago, not even 7 or 8 years ago, I was tossing dollar bills into his guitar case
in the parking lot
bars around Lexington. So to go from that to selling out stadiums, just a fantastic story. So,
well, the Rick Rubin influence, at least on this one particular song, because I watched the video recently, Nose on the Grindstone, and of course now that he's playing big arenas and he's become kind of a worldwide phenomenon. He's had to expand. It can't just be him and a guitar.
Right.
But in this particular song, you can tell the Rubin influence because suddenly in the middle of it, there's this huge organ.
Some keyboard action going on. They build it up.
It's really good, and it's haunting, and it's perfect for Tyler.
Yeah. I just can't. I mean, I'm a huge fan. I'm in much the same vein as I am with Billy Strings. I just unapologetically, I'm going to love whatever he puts out. I go into it with that mentality as a fan, and
you're not disappointed.
Yeah, I'm not disappointed. So that's the way I look at it. Other music news that happened shortly after our last broadcast or podcast was the death of Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, which is, I don't even know how to go there because as a kid I wasn't really a Beach Boys fan.
Well, it ties in perfectly with the fact that the Beach Boys are going to open a new amphitheater in Lexington on September the 17th called the Gatton Park. It's a brand new amphitheater, which is literally in the parking lot of Rupp Arena.
So now there's no parking for Rupp Arena. So,
but the whole Brian Wilson thing, and I was looking up like songs that he wrote. Wouldn't It Be Nice? California Girls, Good Vibrations. But the one, I think we'll both agree, God Only Knows, is just an amazing piece of work that he wrote. And I even texted you. I was listening to it. It was the day that he died. I even texted you. I'm listening to the song. 14 key changes in the song.
Yeah.
14, not 2.
Right.
Like in most. Or 3.
And that's where I think most people, and I don't.
And the lyrics are amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't claim to be, I do not play an instrument. I have no musical ability whatsoever. I do live in the house with 3 damn good vocalists. So over the years, I've learned how to listen to things and understand the difficulty in certain arrangements, and also learn to understand when things don't sound quite right. But when you listen to God Only Knows, the vocal layering going on in that, it's just amazing. You can listen to, I think the casual fan is going to listen to Beach Boys. You can listen to multiple different songs and be like, oh yeah, that's the Beach Boys. And you dismiss it at that. But when you really sit down and try to absorb it and dissect it and pay attention to what's really going on, and there's a whole lot going on. The guy was a genius.
Yeah. I listened to 2 different versions. I listened to one where it stripped the music off and all you hear are the vocals, and I don't know how many tracks of vocals there were. You talk about layering, but it was very moving, to be honest. And I'm not a huge Beach Boys fan.
Right. Same.
I mean, it's kind of before, I'm old, but they're still before my time.
Yeah.
He was 82, but just the musicality, the lyrical prowess, it works, and it's just amazing to hear that stuff.
Well, I mean,
because you're also talking in the 60s, they're putting this stuff together in the 60s and early 70s, and you're going, who knew you could do that?
Right.
With limited resources.
Well, in the album that God Only Knows and Wouldn't It Be Nice, those songs are on the album called Pet Sounds, which
is an iconic album.
It's an iconic album now. When it was released, it was fairly well dismissed and almost panned by critics. But over time, I think people realized that it's one of the most progressive albums to ever be put out.
And they got pigeonholed as that, surf sound
right.
and stuff like that. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's taken a lot of time, and unfortunately now he's dead. I think along with three other of the original members, I think Mike Love is the only surviving member.
Which, I mean, I don't know much about Mike Love, and I'm not such a Beatles
Kevin Love's uncle
devotee that
True.
that I
but what my point is, it has taken so much time that now they're not able to reap the benefits of what they created.
Right.
And I'm not talking about financially, although they probably were well heeled, but just their legacy. People now are finally understanding that this music is good. It's it's stuff that probably will never be repeated
it
or
was
redone.
Well ahead of its time. I mean, when you look at Brian Wilson, and then you have to also kind of, if you dive into his history, I mean, in 1964, Brian Wilson had a nervous breakdown and suffered from mental illness for the remainder of his life. So, I mean, to the point where in 64, after the breakdown, he retired from touring with the Beach Boys and concentrated instead on songwriting. I mean, he was still a part of the band. They kept him in the loop, but he didn't tour with them up until a few years back. They did some reunion tours and he went out.
Well, to the point too that he and his brother Dennis even worked with Charles Manson on writing songs of all people.
Yeah. I mean, it's just you don't know where some of these artists, depending on where they
and even put one of Manson's songs on one of the albums. He had to change the name from "Cease to Exist," which is pretty apropos to
sounds like
never,
a Metallica
never learn
tune.
Not to Love, which is more Beach Boys.
Yeah, I mean, "Cease to Exist" that could be a Slayer, Metallica, Anthrax kind of tune.
True,
but that's Father Time is undefeated. So you and I are, as long as we're able to do this, we're going to be talking about famous musicians and geniuses that. And
look, I'm 60 plus, and it has taken me all these years to finally appreciate something like God Only Knows.
Right. I totally agree
because I'm not rushing out to buy Beach Boys music, but there's enough of it for me to go, you know what, this stuff is pretty special.
Yeah. And I think we both would agree that we can kind of credit our dive back into vinyl, vinyl record collecting hobby, in that I've learned to appreciate a lot of music that I didn't previously, simply because if I was able to stumble onto something somewhere kind of cheap in good condition, I'd pick it up and bring it home and listen to it. And so I've listened to
your 50 Herb Albert albums.
I mean, I got all kinds of stuff that I would not have listened to prior to buying vinyl.
Joke,
so
he's an American treasure.
Yeah, no doubt. So, all right. I don't think I've got anything else from a music standpoint or concert standpoint. We, like I said, we went to Billy. I'm a couple weeks out, 3-4 weeks out now from going to see Beck up in Cincinnati. Different kind of concert, but my wife and I went to see a comedian at Comedy Off Broadway. After all we've had going on the last 2 weeks, we needed a night where we could just get out and laugh and enjoy a couple of adult beverages and laugh. But we got that. It was cool. We went to see John Heffron. And if you are anywhere in this realm age-wise as Steve, I'm 55. If you're in that same age range, you could look up some John Heffron clips on YouTube and probably get a chuckle or two, because he builds his act around references that we get from our childhood and then what it's like getting older and then struggles we face and that kind of thing. So good night out. It was a fun night to be out and laugh. And I guess that kind of can segue us into the food portion of things. Prior to going to the show, my wife and I went to a little Mediterranean place in Lexington called Watan, or I think that's how they pronounce it, Watan, W-A-T-A-N, Watan Mediterranean Grill, over off Clay's Mill. And I had gotten lunch from that place a time or two. We'll throw up a couple pictures. They do an incredible lunch special, so I had tried that out at work and told my wife, I was like, we got to go try this. You need to eat this place. So we went and had this just ridiculous platter for two. Couldn't begin to eat it all. So I'm all about bang for your buck, and we definitely got it at this place. And it's even better when you go to a place and the owner is just falling all over himself to make you welcome and make sure you're satisfied. So can't say enough good things. If you're in Lexington, Kentucky, or anywhere close and you like Mediterranean food, Watan Mediterranean Grill is a must. But because of our flooding situation, we have eaten out a lot over the last 2 weeks
I can only imagine.
We have two. I have a kitchen down here in the man cave, and then we obviously have our main kitchen upstairs, and both of them are not functioning at this point. They're in various states of functionality. So it's been a whole lot easier to just go eat out, which sounds really cool initially. And then when you do it for multiple days, you're just like, I'm kind of tired of this. The day that this happened, ironically enough, was on Father's Day, and we were out to eat. Both of my kids were still abroad, and my wife took me to Lexington for brunch. We went to Stella's, which Stella's on Jefferson. If you're looking for a great brunch, that's a place to go. Highly recommend that. Throw some pictures up of that as well. But we were gone about 2 hours and then came home to water streaming out of the ceiling and the recessed lighting. We've had some other good food. What about you? Have you done anything?
Well, I was going to say, I'm a big fan of Midway, Kentucky restaurants.
Absolutely.
There's some good ones over there. Shannon and I took in the Goose. Have you ever done the Goose over there?
I want to say we have. It's been years, like right after they opened. So
Yeah.
I haven't done it recently.
Had a burger over there. I've been over there before, had a hot brown, but this time I chose a burger. Very good. Highly recommend it. Throw up a picture here. But yeah, I'm a big fan of places over in Midway. It's just it's quaint. You can sit outside. I mean, this was before the heat wave came through where it was 98 every day. Right. And occasionally you might get a train rumble through town.
Which is pretty cool.
Yes. But it's really cool. Nice little shops. You can walk both sides of Main Street, in about 10 minutes. So we enjoy going over there. But yeah, the Goose.
Yeah, Midway's pretty awesome. We went the night you and I went to see Billy Strings. You had not been to Smithtown Seafood.
That too. I forgot about that.
At West Six Brewing.
Yeah.
So Smithtown is kind of almost my default pre-concert location. I'll go there and get something to eat. I typically default to fish and chips.
Yep, which is what I had that night. It's very good.
It's one of the best, if not the best, in Lexington. So
yeah.
I enjoy it. We did that. Other place I went, actually this weekend, I went to J2C Asian Bistro in Lexington, and had just some basic orange chicken and fried rice, but also very, very good. Everybody in my crew enjoyed what we all had. So I made a trip to, I think when we picked up my oldest from the airport after their journey to Europe, we went to Joe B's. Joe Bologna's. Yeah, Joe Bologna's is one of the most legendary, iconic Italian joints in Lexington. It's been around, gosh, I don't know how long. 70s, 80s,
yeah,
70s,
40,
80s, something
years.
like that.
Yeah.
It's in an old church now. This is they started out somewhere else in Lexington, but then many years ago moved to this old church. And I was just craving some basic spaghetti and meatballs. That's what I wanted. And that, and of course, they have these breadsticks that are just legendary. They float them in garlic butter.
Yeah, that's the size of a mini baseball bat.
Yeah, they're pretty impressive. And I was not let down by my spaghetti and meatballs.
Never are there, for sure.
At Joe B's. So
pizza's excellent too.
yeah, everything's good there, and it's just another one of those iconic. You're not looking for Michelin dining at Joe B's for sure, but you're not going to be disappointed as well. So anyway, we are drinking. I didn't have a whole lot of beer going on in the fridge. That's not been one of my focuses the last couple weeks, but I had this one hanging out. This is from Mile Wide Brewing in Louisville, Kentucky. It's called Ambrosia. They listed as an oat cream sour ale, and I'll be 100% honest, I did not do a whole lot of research to dive into that, but oat cream sour ale with pineapple, tangerine, marshmallow, and coconut. It's nice and tart, but it would be a great beach beverage, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can definitely pick up the marshmallow component adds a little sweetness. Mm-hmm. The pineapple and tangerine, that goes without saying. Those are evident. The coconut, I get it, but I think it picks up a little bit more on
more of the marshmallow here.
Yeah, the marshmallow I think is a little bit more dominant than the coconut. I get a little bit of the coconut on the nose, but good stuff. Mile Wide always cranks out some good beers over there in Louisville.
Good.
I will probably try to pick up a few new things before we convene here again and have things that are interesting to both of us. But anything else you can think of?
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't know what, and I'm so out of it right now that I don't even know from a sports standpoint. I can't think of what we've got coming up. I think in the world of golf, we'll have the British Open, or the Open comes up here soon. So that'll probably draw some of my attention. I have tried to watch a little bit of golf to maintain some sanity here over the last 2 weeks, but I think we'll just start gearing up for UK football. I mean, that's just literally going to be right around the corner.
60-some days, I think, until first game.
So, early August, they'll start getting out, and I think hitting in pads, and the game shortly after that would be my guess.
First weekend in September, I believe. Don't hold me to that, but I think that's when it is.
Yeah, they should start to iron things out a little bit. It's going to be fun to watch and see how dialed in Stoops can be and can get his players.
Well, I'll just say some of the best seasons that he's enjoyed in Lexington have come when they've been flying under the radar.
Yeah. And
they are definitely flying under the radar. There are not many expectations for this team this year. And, I think it all depends upon what Calzada does at quarterback.
Yeah.
And if that wide receiver room and that offensive line room can hold things together.
Yeah. It's not brutal schedule notwithstanding.
That is true.
It's just going to be a tough.
It's like
go for Cats.
The SEC schedule on repeat.
Yeah. It's going to be tough. Well, anyway, I'm sure we'll gather up some more stuff to talk about, and hopefully next time I'll be a little bit more put together. And
I walked in and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Because what you can't see behind the camera is like boxes and boxes of stuff, bare walls down to the drywall and plastic walls hanging up from the ceiling. And
it's just a test for an old dude. But like I said, I
can't imagine.
This just gives me a lot of perspective and makes me appreciate, one, how fortunate I am, and two, what other people in the Commonwealth of Kentucky have had to deal with their flooding. And so it could have been worse. I'm thankful that it wasn't, and we'll get through it. And I may need my insurance company to reimburse me for a little bit more alcohol than normal, but other than that, we're gonna get through it, and we'll be back with you hopefully next week and talk about some more sports and food and beverage and music and all that good stuff. See you next time.